Yeah, let's start the meeting. So thank you, Matt, for coming to this Zoom. We are really great. We are really happy to have you here to talk about yourself, and because most of us know some more about legislature part of election, but not a lot about the judiciary. So it's a good time to learn, how judiciary works, how the election works. So it will be a great learning opportunity for us here. And also, talk a little bit about why you run in this election. What motivated you to run in this election, and what's the significance or importance the judge position to the community, to our community, to the safety of the community, things like that. So yeah, I'll let you start. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all for having me. Of course, I have to start by thanking Suin and of course Wayne for they're always being so good to me, and really nice, good people. And I'm really fortunate to have met them a couple years back, and I want to just acknowledge them and thank them for this evening's opportunity. And of course, to everybody here, George and Dr. Tang and everybody that's welcomed me and brought me here tonight. So thank you for having me, and thank you for showing interest in something that I think is a widely misunderstood and widely neglected area of the third branch of government. And that's really what this is about, is the third co-equal branch of government. Now, you touched on, there is the legislature. Obviously, we all know that. Those are Congress people and Assembly people and Senate members, and they make the law. The executive branch tends to set policy and do big picture items, but it's the judiciary that really interprets all those things and acts as the funnel that then impacts our community on a day-to-day level, much more so than you realize. So one of the misunderstood things is what a judge does and what the judiciary does. They never create the law. They don't write law. They're actually barred from being a participant in that way, because that would impact their ability to be fair and impartial. Because we've all heard that phrase, to be fair and impartial. And what that really means is that whatever comes before a judge, whether it be a criminal matter or a civil matter, a family law case like a divorce, or anything that comes before a court, the judge is not supposed to impart any of their own personal bias into that and do what they think personally is right. They're just supposed to follow the law, the way it is written. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that is being discussed in today's environment, in a modern environment, particularly post George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and some of the evolutions that we've gone in as a society that I think got George Gascon elected, as well as the DA of San Francisco, Bowden, and some of the other people in the law enforcement community. And I think that wave, unfortunately, is starting to have negative repercussions into our courtrooms. And so that's why I think now is a particularly important time in our judiciary history to make sure that the people being elected are people that are going to not just follow the law, enforce that law. And by that, I mean some of the laws that are on the books right now that are intended to keep our communities safe. Things like, if you use a gun, you get extra time in prison. If you're a gang member and you commit the crime at the benefit of or in relationship to that gang, you get extra time in prison. And the way we've set this up as a structure from the legislature is sort of like an a la carte system, where if something comes before a judge, it usually has a few layers. So there'll be the original charge, and then on top of that original charge can be added certain pieces of legislation that are codified as penal code law. And what that means is, let's say someone commits a robbery, and normally that has a sentencing scheme. But if they used a gun, that number goes up as to how long their exposure in prison is. If they fire the gun, it again goes up. If they're a gang member, it goes up. If they've inflicted great bodily injury upon a person, it goes up. And so what's happened now is all those little pieces that you can attach are wiped away because of policies from the district attorney's office and other district attorney's offices, and even from some of the pushback is even going on with Gavin Newsom, the governor, as well as some of the more liberal people within the legislature. Now, I'm not allowed, and it would be against the judicial canons to really comment on the law as to whether or not it's proper or whether or not it needs to be changed. That would be outside of what a judicial candidate should discuss. But what I can discuss is what I believe is the right way to follow the law. And so as a judge, when things flow into a courtroom, judges shouldn't be interpreting policies, either from a governor, either from a district attorney, even from a public defender, from anybody. It should not be policy that dictates. It should not be politics that dictates. And whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, that should not be what guides your decision. You should do what's right under the law. Now, how does that sort of fit into the big picture? So the legislative body here, the state assembly, would, let's say, put a law on the books. And let's say the law says, you have to wear a mask or it's a misdemeanor. And that's kind of one of the hot button issues right now. And as a judge, whether or not I believe in masks, whether or not I think you should be forced to wear masks or not, unless it's a constitutional challenge where I'm given the opportunity to test its constitutionality, and all I'm determining is whether someone did or did not follow the law, my obligation as a court officer, as a judge, is to impose the law as it is written. Now, that is what is going to be one of the hot button issues, I think, as things go forward from a voter perspective that educates themselves. Do they want a judge to take the bench who's going to say, I am not going to follow that law? I believe that it's a bad law, and so I'm not going to impose the penalties, or I'm not going to follow that law. And unfortunately, right now, there's an emboldenment for certain candidates based on the climate that's been created and flowed from the George Floyd and BLM and all those sort of movements. There are now judicial candidates who are straight up saying to the community, I'm not going to follow the law. If you elect me, I'm going to follow what George Gascon says we're supposed to do. I am not going to impose the penalties that are on the books. And so what I'm tying in here is why it's important. How does this impact us as a society? And I'm going to give you an example.
Okay. Hey, Matt, can I interrupt?
Absolutely.
I want to.
So where I left off is really like, why is it important? So I kind of gave you a breakdown of sort of how it works and what a judge's real role is, which is to not change the law, not reinterpret the law, to follow the law and impose the law in a fair and impartial manner, so that no matter who's in front of you, no matter what you look like, no matter your gender, no matter who you love, no matter how much money you have, you are going to get the same equal treatment. And I think that's why the scales of justice, the woman holding the scales of justice, is blind, is because it's not supposed to be, if you are an immigrant, if you are a woman, if you are handicapped, anything that distinguishes you from anyone else should never distinguish you under the law. And that's my approach. And when you're doing that, what you need to do is take the law as it is written and you apply it to what's in front of you. Now, why is that important, and why is this race important? Number one, it's important because it really impacts people. And I have represented people that are truly, truly innocent, that did not commit a crime, that are being charged with a crime. And if you're in front of a judge that is not willing to listen, that is not willing to open themselves up to the possibility that prosecutors make a mistake, that someone may be innocent in front of you, they may not get treated the right way. And it goes the opposite direction. If you have a victim of a crime that comes in front of a judge, and that judge, all they care about is the defendant, but ignores the fact that this individual may be the victim of a heinous crime, sometimes motivated because of the way they look. And we've heard a lot about what's gone on within the Asian American community in places like San Francisco and New York. Here in Los Angeles, I think a bit, but not to the degree like in San Francisco particularly. It's horrific to think that there could be a judge or a policy in place that says, well, we don't care that it was based upon the way that person looks or the impression that they may be from another country. Doesn't matter. Of course it should matter. And there's something in the law that says it matters. There are allegations that if you commit a crime based upon the fact that you believe them to be either an immigrant or from a certain national background or origin, and you commit the crime as a result, you get more punished. And that should be imposed. George Gascon removed that from the power of the district attorney's office and said, we're not doing that anymore. That's not following the law. And what a judge needs to do is to take that bench and say, your policy is not my policy. I follow the law. I'm sorry that you as a prosecutorial agency do not. And I think that's why this is so important, because right now what we don't want to have is this continuum of pushback for some sort of social theory revolution on treating defendants as if they're not committing crimes. That's why this is so important. Judges need to be elected or appointed by the governor, but that's much less likely, who will take the bench and will see things for what they are and will impose the law. And that's what I stand for, and that's why I am running. It's important to you as a Chinese community, a Chinese American community, because you are a group of people that believe in following the law. Many people are from your community are immigrants and have seen what it's like when these laws are either oppressive or unevenly applied. And you've come here for opportunity, and these people want to have the protections to safely pursue the American dream, whatever that may be to each and every one of us. And if we put judges on the bench that don't respect that principle in these communities, it's going to be as if this country is not what it's supposed to be. And so, in my view, America is founded upon the equal opportunity of all people because the law protects the right to pursue that. And in our election, there are judges right now that are people that are running for judge rather, that are specifically saying that they believe that there should be the kinds of changes to the law that would impact this exact principle, and if elected, won't follow those laws. That is why we need to invigorate the community and empower people through knowledge of what it means in this election to vote for our judges. Now, me, why am I running? One, I think it's important to have people that understand these principles that I'm discussing and that are willing to enforce the law, that are willing to protect our communities, to have those people elected. And I've been an attorney for almost 20 years now. I will talk a little bit about myself now. I've been an attorney about 20 years. When I first became an attorney, I spent a couple years in workers' compensation law, which is an area of law where people who are injured in the workplace seek compensation for their injury. Sometimes through temporary disability benefits, sometimes through permanent disability benefits. And it's an important arena of law, but it just wasn't the best fit for me. So as soon as the district attorney's office was hiring, I became a deputy district attorney here in Los Angeles County. So I've spent over 14 years as a prosecutor here in Los Angeles, prosecuting every kind of case you could imagine, all the way from the most minimal of cases, such as driving without a driver's license, or DUIs, things that are considered lower level crimes, all the way up through, by the time I left the office, I was the senior trial deputy in the courthouse where I worked. And I was handling the most serious cases that came through those doors, which included, really heinous acts, terrible acts of murder, people doing things to each other that are unacceptable in our society. And those were the kinds of cases I was prosecuting. And throughout my career, I had spent time in a special unit where I prosecuted individuals for committing harms on the most vulnerable. There's a particular unit called the VIP unit, the Victim Impact Unit, where basically the vulnerable victims were our targeted types of cases. So they were children victims, the elderly, and hate crimes was one of those that was within my purview, within the type of case I prosecuted. And I prosecuted many, many cases, particularly where it was domestic violence related, where a child that was an adult may do something to their parent or to each other, or in a loving relationship, one spouse to another, or a romantic relationship. So though I did several years in those types of cases too. But then I did reach a point where I decided it was best for me and my family that I explore the other side. And so I did leave the district attorney's office in 2019, and I became a defense attorney. And I've never left the principles behind that justice requires people to be held accountable. So I did not become a defense attorney to get guilty people innocent. I did not become a defense attorney because I believe people should not be charged with crimes. I became a defense attorney because truly the Constitution continues to be protected by defense attorneys as well as prosecutors, because we need each other. It's a system where they both need to exist, because by the connection of those two, you get justice and you get the truth. And I have stood next to innocent people now that I've been a defense attorney and understood what it means to be charged with a crime when you did nothing wrong, and how deeply it impacts you in your psyche, within your family, financially. And it's tremendous. And it's something that needs to be just as importantly viewed as it is when someone is truly guilty and they really need to go to prison. They're both equally important in our system. And that's why we need a judge. And that's why I want to be a judge who understands both of those facets. And in order to have perspective, you can't just read a book and interpret the book and then think, I got it. And the way I usually look at it is I can read a book on how to make a pie, an apple pie. That's something as American and soundingly simple as an apple pie. You can read the instructions, but until you've made those pies, you can never understand the nuances of maybe a little bit of extra cinnamon, or a little bit less sugar, or buttering the crust, or some of the little tiny pieces of it that really make it work, that really give it its flavor, until you've made not just one, not just 10, hundreds maybe. And still, by making hundreds of those pies, you may not make a good one. You may be a terrible pie maker. But the truth of it is, by doing something for long enough and having your mind open and your ability to interpret and understand perspective, you can learn and understand what it means. And that's how I came to evolve to want to become a judge. I have done both sides. I understand the sort of ripples that impact families, individuals, and communities by these types of cases. And nothing is more important than our safety in the community. In my opinion, I'm raising young boys. I worry every single day about my city and what's going on in this community. And I worry every single day about their safety and the safety of all your children and all of us and our ability to function in this society. And so I am running to make sure that as a bench officer, I work every single day on behalf of all of our communities to make sure that we are all able to succeed in a safe environment. So I'm happy to take questions. I hope that gives you some information. Oh, I do want to tell you a little bit about me, just real quick. I'm sorry. Born and raised here in Los Angeles. I grew up in Pasadena. Went through the public school system in Pasadena, graduating from Pasadena High School. After that, I went off to college. I went to San Diego State, where I graduated with a degree in history. After I graduated undergrad, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I worked lots of different jobs. I was a bar back. I worked as a lifeguard. I cleaned pools. I did a lot of different jobs, just really trying to figure out where did I fit in this great picture. And I was in my 20s. So I just wasn't really sure yet where my direction was. But ultimately in that window, I became an accountant. I started as a bookkeeper at a firm and worked hard and put the hours in and worked my way up the ladder and to become an accountant. And then that's when I realized I needed to educate myself. I needed to go back to school. I needed to expand my opportunities and educate myself. And I thought law school, no matter what, was the best place to do that because you can do anything with a law degree. So I did. And after graduating from law school, I went to the University of Denver College of Law. I graduated law school, and that's when I went into the workers' compensation arena and all those other places I described previously. So, questions?
Okay, thank you so much for introducing yourself and give us a perspective for the judges, for the judicial system. So yeah, I'm really impressed about the experience in your life. You you did almost a lot of stuff and finally become the attorney and prosecutor. So now we open to the questions of our volunteers here. So anybody has any question, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Speak? Do I just speak?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, my name is Dennis. I'm from Asia Sky Media, and I do know a little bit about the law from the movie The Firm.
It's a great book.
Yeah, that is the first time I learned about what is the law and what is the law can do. And
It's powerful.
okay, yeah, and okay. Here's some general question about there's so many different Supreme Court office, and you are at office number 70. And can
70.
you explain to us? Yeah, 70. Can you explain to us what are the difference?
Sure, and really all that is just a way to distinguish a different position within the county from another. So there's over 400 judges here in Los Angeles County, and of those 425 or 30, I can't remember exactly how many there are, every 6 years, a certain number of those become available for election. If someone remains a judge, there's no election unless somebody challenges that. Seat 70, whoever was in that position retired. So all it means is that's an open seat. It doesn't mean you're going to go somewhere specific within the county or a certain type of courtroom. It's just that's one of the seats available. So right now there are only 6 open seats on the ballot. I believe it's 60, 67, 70, 90, 116 or 118, but those are just open seats.
Oh, okay. So it's not geographic. It's nothing to do with the geography.
Right. I think all the Los Angeles County's registered voters can vote for these six openings, right, Matt?
Yes, exactly. The way it works is it's a countywide seat. So whoever wins, so let's say I won 70, it could be anywhere in the county, in any courtroom where they need a judge. It really doesn't, it's really just a way to distinguish that seat from other seats. It's not like it's that one's in Norwalk and that one's in Downey and that one's in La Cañada. It's nothing like that. It's just more a way to distinguish that there's different seats available.
Okay, good.
So question is so isn't that okay, so there are 9 seats open, and then under number 70 there are you and 4 other are running
Candidates.
And then how come just you guys are running for 70 instead of like all 9 seats are open for all these? I think there are like 50, 60 people running for like, well, did you choose 70 or is it by lot or?
I chose 70. So what happened is there was a 2-week window where the seats were available to put your name on it. And during those 2 weeks, you could select which of those seats you chose to go in and make a run for. I chose that particular seat, and the other people also chose that particular seat for any number of reasons. And if you look on the ballot, you'll see that in each race, generally speaking, there's about one deputy district attorney and one public defender. And then, people sort of chose where they wanted to go based on who else they thought they would position well against. It was strategy.
Okay,
so you
okay,
know
I
whom
see.
you're running against before you decide to run a certain race. Kind of.
Sort of. It's a little complicated, but what happens is in Norwalk is where the registrar is. And what happens is during those 2 week window, any one of those 2 weeks, you can go in and put your name on. So let's say, and this is where the strategy comes in. Let's say the very first day at 9 a.m., you put your name on. Everybody that came after you now decided, hey, I see that John is running in seat 60. I want to take that one because I think John is a weak candidate. So really, it was just more strategy. And honestly, during that same 2 week window, if you wanted to, you could put your name on every single one of those seats.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
That's why now, after you explain it, I understand why office 156 and office 116 is nobody going against the Supreme Court judge.
Huh?
This he like
the
116
incumbent,
yeah,
right?
like
That's
116 David Gelfand.
Yeah, David Gelfand.
And nobody want to run against him, right? And
just
then,
Lloyd Handler.
Just Handler. And like 156 and for Carol Ellswick and only Albert Robert.
Robles, yeah. So
yeah.
Okay, so the way
before, like when we first start, I was studying this and I'm trying to understand why is it the way it is, right? The way it's set up, and some place only 2 candidates. Oh, now I understand why.
So could there be races that nobody is running against the incumbent? I don't know, or there's no race to, and they're kind of like automatically elected. Would there be such cases? And
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. What happens is every 6 years, a judge is up for re-election. Every 6 years. If nobody challenges that judge, they automatically get the next 6 years. So the ones you're talking about, Judge Ellswick and Judge Gelfand, are being challenged. And that's the only reason why those two are the only incumbents that are on the ballot.
Okay, yeah, I see. Okay.
So there are races that dodge the ballot totally then.
Correct.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Understood.
And then next question is, since judge only follow the law, supposed to follow the law, if judges just only can follow the law, what's the difference between one judge versus another judge? Because both judge will all they do is follow the books.
Good question, Dennis. And I'll tell you what the difference is some don't, right?
Yeah,
some don't. And the other issue is
I don't get it.
Some don't.
Yeah, I don't. That is the part I cannot understand. How can the judge not follow the law?
So let me give you an example. I'll give you an example. And it's not just that they don't follow the law. It's that when they follow the law, they follow it in a way that maybe is a little different from someone else. So I'm going to give you an example. There's certain things that judges have the exclusive responsibility to do in a courtroom. And one of those things is setting bail. And so when someone's arrested, there's a schedule of how much that bail is supposed to be. Now, there are some judges that will look at that bail schedule and they'll say, if it's supposed to be $10,000, I'm going to make it $100,000, or I'm going to make it 0 and let them out. And so they still can find legal reasoning why, based on some analysis they provide, but they're really not adhering to or following the law specifically as the way it's written in that one instance. And as an example, let's say somebody who is charged with something like petty theft, all right? And let's say it's somebody that's homeless, right? And what they stole was a loaf of bread. And they come before a judge, and it's supposed to be, let's say, $1,000 bail. And knowing that they're homeless and they can never afford that bail amount, some judges may say, you know what, I want to make sure you come back, so I'm going to impose a $50 bail. And it's not according to schedule, which is technically the law, but they're still within the gray area of the law because they have the ability to set bail. And let's say that same judge who it says you're supposed to set it at $1,000 instead makes it $50,000 and goes way, way higher, knowing that there's absolutely no way this person's ever getting out and they're just going to sit in jail. Well, they're still technically following the law because there is an ability to do that, but they're following it in a way that's a little different maybe from someone in the next courtroom. And that's where the importance of who you vote for a judge comes into play. And that's where I was referencing earlier, why if you get an activist who is more part of the current social wave of reform, may say, if someone comes in front of me, there's triggers within the law that allow me to let someone out who's accused of shooting somebody. And I may reduce their bail. And they're technically, potentially still following the law, but they're following it in a way that's inconsistent with what's appropriate for the safety of our community. Does that make any sense to you? Do you understand?
Yeah, I get it. And I already thought of a scenario. What will happen to me if I go protest? And then I got arrested for unlawful assembly. Then because the judge doesn't like me and he can post a high bail, is it like something like that?
Exactly. And that's why there's discussion of why it's so important right now. And a lot of the sort of the forums or the debates kind of things that I've gone to where the other candidates are there, and why there's such a distinguishable difference between, let's say, me and some of the people I'm running against, where, they say, hey, listen, we should abolish sending people to prison, or we should eliminate the juvenile system because they don't want to impose the law, or they want to change how the law is applied to people. Whereas I am in the other direction, where I just say, hey, we need to hold people accountable, but we also need to understand that some people are in positions that you need to be sensitive to, that this is a human experience, and that we need to not be absolute in one or the other, but follow the law, hold people accountable, and do what's right. And so, that's kind of where that all kind of comes into play.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other people? Next question. Next one.
Okay. May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But in LA County, it's in very deep blue state. As a judicial branch, how many judges are more, we call liberal? They are not based on law, not interpreted the law, but they are using their own political view to impose whatever the sentence is. But what's the percentage of the judges that don't follow the laws in this political environment?
I don't have an exact number, but I can certainly guess it's probably a pretty small amount that are really far left, because what ends up happening is if judges are too far in either direction, there's a way for either the district attorney's office or the public defender's office to take legal steps so that they can't hear cases anymore. So there are checks and balances, which is part of like the great American system, right? Is checks and balances. So those do exist. So there are really no extremes, because if there are, they get removed. But generally speaking, most courts do impose the law as it should and do punish people the way they should. But there, of course, are judges, and my guess would be somewhere between 15 to 20%, I'd say, that are known to be softer as opposed to harder on crime. But I think the real issue are not as much the sitting judges. It's the people that are now trying to become judges that are much more reflective of exactly the kind of thing you're concerned about, Dr. Tang, which is a lot of people running right now. One of the ladies in my particular race who have said directly that right now they are representing defendants as a public defender. And if they become a judge, they're going to continue to make that their priority, is protecting the defendant's rights. And I think that's the danger. And I think that's why this is much more of a modern discussion of the judiciary as opposed to a historical one, where what we're seeing now, like you said, we're a very blue state. And there's a lot of very liberal policies and a lot of very liberal things that are happening legislatively, but it's bleeding into judicial systems by way of people seeking election. And even I think Gavin Newsom tends to potentially appoint people that are a little more left-leaning. But it's really the people running that are very left. There's a few of them that are very, very blue that really only want to become judges to advocate for defendants. And in my opinion, that there's no place for that. That's not what this is about. That should not happen. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Second question, just to look at nationally, even the protesters or surrounding what Supreme Court judges in Washington. So literally they're threatening them, with the physical violence or whatever the violence they're going to do. So they're if you become judge, I think in this very, I would say, increasingly violent environment, as a judge, how you can get, hey, I'm following the law, but then the other side thinking, hey, you're not. So instead of, in the past, people probably not happy with the protest, with the counter lawsuit, but now they use the physical violence against the judges. But if you're the judge and you get threatened, what can you do to protect you and your family?
Well, I've been kind of living that kind of way for a long number of years. So, when I was a district attorney, WDA, I had a stalker, basically, that was trying to get me. So I've already had to take measures to protect me and my family. And my wife, who is still a deputy district attorney, actually had somebody that she was prosecuting and ultimately convicted, and who got the death penalty, who was a very powerful figure within the Mexican mafia and gang life, who put a hit or a greenlit my wife. So I've already been kind of living in a world and with my family with circumstances that have caused us to take precautions. And unfortunately, it's just part of the life that we've chosen and accepted, that's something we need to be cognizant of and be aware of, and be very careful with. We have security at home, live in a cameras and those kinds of things. And but in my opinion, I would like to be part of this system, and if that means risking my safety unfortunately risking my safety to do what I think is right and to contribute to what I think is bettering my society, that's something I'm willing to do. And that's something my wife and I have been willing to do for, she's been a DA now, I think it's 17 years, going on 17 years, and I was a DA for more than 14. So we put ourselves out there, and that's just comes with the territory, unfortunately. But it's sometimes when you do the right thing, you have to accept the risks.
Thank you. I
for
really appreciate that, and I mean, I'm kind of impressed and moved by you and your family, your wife, put your life on the line in the pursuit of justice. So, really, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Then next question, what can we do to help you to get elected?
That's my favorite question so far. Truthfully, just telling everybody and that you're connected to, that you've made contact with one of the judicial candidates, and if you believe in what I'm saying and you believe in the principles I stand for, share that information in whatever grassroots a way you think that you can. Clearly, I ask for your vote, but I also ask that in turn, if you believe in me and my message, that you extend out to everyone either through social media, through family, and put my name out there and say, hey, we know somebody that's on the ballot. His name is Matthew Vodnoy, seat 70, and it's important that he become the person elected. And that's all I ask. That's all I ask is please helping me get my name out there, because not everybody takes the time like you are. So I thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, one more question. I thought I have no more question. One more question. How many votes in the past, how many votes usually judicial position, like elective position, how many votes usually they get historically? They say 10,000, 100, and 200,000, whatever, like LA County is huge, big county.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, even friends of mine, obviously over the course of the last many years say to me, hey, who do I vote for? Because nobody knows who to vote for, right? So I think what happens is so many people go and leave that blank. So I think there's somewhere between 5.5 and 6 million potential voters. And I think usually the winner is like 150 to 200,000 votes. Like it's not one of those things where it's like an overwhelming, millions of votes. It's in the hundreds of thousands usually.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We have
me.
A few more minutes. So anybody want to ask more?
Okay,
questions?
let me give you some tough question now.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we need a judge who can define woman.
Yeah. That's a tough question, apparently.
Yeah. So I'm just kidding, okay? And actually, right now, I can see you are at very tough spot because you have two opponents, Hancock and Chan. And Hancock is a deputy public defender, and Chan is a deputy district attorney, right? So, and then on the ballot, see, this is how voters vote. When they are on the ballot, when they look at the ballot, some people, if they don't know who they vote for and they ignore it, but like in this case, 70, one may pick district attorney if they are like anti-crime, right?
Right.
If they are like sympathy for criminal, they may pick Hancock, right? Because yeah,
absolutely.
So right now, I need you to make an appointment with me, and we really need a video to telling you, distinguish you between them because I think the Wendy Fudge or the other Eric, how to pronounce his name?
Teresa's.
Teresa's. I think they are not really a big opponent, you know.
They're
But-
not very prominent.
Yeah, and I think you need to beat Hancock and Chen, and
So we can
By-
produce videos for
by
you.
doing that, I think you need something, because on the ballot, just say you are attorney at law, you know, but actually you have more than that. And
Yeah, that's why
people-
we need a, yeah, okay.
People,
Like,
people didn't know about it, so we need people don't read nowadays. People cannot go more than 5-minute video. So the only chance, is I think I need to make appointment with you. Come over here to my studio. Let us produce some 1-minute video.
Oh,
I'll be there tomorrow.
yeah,
so-
that's a good idea.
so
Yeah.
Matthew,
Yeah, I think the
so-
short video is very popular nowadays in a
Yeah,
YouTube,
now
you
we
know,
can
people.
send. Yeah, we can send it to all the social media, Facebook.
We need
Everywhere we
1-minute
will send.
video in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter.
I
Yeah.
got question.
Okay,
I got
okay,
question.
I'm
So
okay.
so this is for this ballot is for June 7th, right?
Yeah, June 7th.
So this is the final, right? Not the primaries for you, right?
It's primary. It's a primary.
Oh, so the top two will.
You still got a top two?
Oh,
Okay,
gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah.
So
Unless
okay,
somebody
so
takes a majority. A
Yeah,
majority
unless
can.
someone take more than 50%, right? Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
50% of the votes. So they are,
My understanding is primaries is the top twos are being accounted for the final in November. That's my understanding.
Unless one candidate gets the majority.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wow, geez. So
but it's almost
wow.
unlikely, right?
Huh?
It's almost,
Super technical, super like there's a lot of conditions, right? Like conditions. Then it will change, right? Like so. Wow.
So now I think the urgent is make the video and send out.
Yeah,
and
sure.
tell people-
We should
because,
make an appointment.
It's kind of
We should make an appointment.
unfair. Yeah, I'm kind of the guy is I don't like unfair. I don't care who is a good guy and who is a bad guy, but I want to see fairness. And just seeing the ballot, I already see unfairness in there. And
Yes.
okay, good.
and I think I really need at least get you, because mainstream media is not talk about they're not going to talk about judge.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's
So-
a good
so
idea.
Dennis-
We can, yeah, you can, arrange
gonna-
that with the, you
I'm
two
going to
guys.
text you. Yeah, I'm going to text you.
Yeah, that's why I put my contact info. And just so you understand why, and Dennis, you really nailed exactly what the problem is the deputy DA gets to put deputy district attorney, the public defender gets to put deputy public. I'm only allowed to put attorney at law.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed the law so that we all should say attorney at law. We should all play on an even playing field.
Yep. There's something is not right. Okay.
I missed that. So
No, like not in the balance. It's
right. No,
suppose
I saw that.
everyone-
I saw that.
No, everyone should put just attorney at law. So everyone,
And
I think they shouldn't
right,
put
right,
some people is the deputy attorney. Some
I
people,
think-
everyone is just put
Oh,
attorney
okay,
at law.
but,
Then that will be fair. That
Matthew
will be fair.
mentioned that you have been working for the court previously too, right? Like so
Yeah.
you're more than attorney at law technically.
2019 district attorney prosecutor,
Okay, gotcha.
and then a defendant attorney.
Oh, so you're
after.
both. You're
Yeah, so
you're,
he know both
you're,
sides.
you're a three. You're
Yeah,
a
yeah,
three
so-
in one.
Yeah, so he knows.
Wow.
So that's why we when we put this message out for the Zoom meeting, we say you are the one who has the most like a comprehensive perspective of the judicial system, how it works, because you are prosecutor and you are defense lawyer, so you know both sides.
Oh man.
That's important.
Exactly. And that's what I think I'm significantly distinguishable from my competitors, and what qualifies me more so than anybody else is just, one, I think I just kind of have the right temperament and the right approach, but two, I have the experience that distinguishes me. I'm the only one that's seen them both and understand and worked with both, so I can bring that with me, where the other ones, they've done one thing and that's it. How could they understand the whole picture?
Okay,
Yeah,
we need to get this message out to you know, a lot of audiences. So that's what we wanted.
Yeah, but also in current environment, it seems like crimes are having more rights than victims. So you need to address that questions.
Absolutely. And that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons
I
why
asked you-
it's so important. Oh, you asked me that question?
Yep, no, I asked you that question before. So
Right.
you probably, when you interview with Dennis, you probably just talk about that point as well. But people worry about it. You were in the defense side, you may protect crimes instead of protect the victims.
That's right.
And that's a very good point. And that's exactly what some of my competitors are saying they're going to do, where I'm saying absolutely not. That's
You're right.
exactly what you're not supposed to do.
But that's the first thing come to my mind. You're a defense lawyer, you're more likely protect defendant instead of victims. So I guess many people will have that impression. Then when you make the video, you probably emphasize your victims' interest should be above crime's interest to me. But from the law point, probably is equal or should be above. I don't know. May you
I think
answer?
it should be, yeah, it should be the.
No, may you
that's
answer
fair.
the question, Matt? I'm learning a little bit here.
Okay, so I have a great way to answer that question, and this is what I firmly believe is the way every judicial officer should look at it. Each of those respective parties have constitutional rights that must always, always be respected. There's no question that a defendant has constitutional rights, and they need to be proven guilty based on constitutional rights, and have whatever search occurred or whatever arrest occurred all be in line with what law enforcement is supposed to do. But we should never, ever, ever forget that the intent of the system is to create a safe environment so that we don't have victims, and therefore always respect that when a victim comes in, that they must be heard, that they must be understood that they are truly a victim, and that the purpose of the system is to eliminate victimization, and that people that do things that cause there to be victims, they need to be appropriately held accountable. And so it's both of their rights that are involved, but it's the overall purpose of the system that never should be forgotten, which does allow for protections, absolute protections for victims, and making sure they're made whole, and made sure that we don't create an environment where there are more victims and victims need to be heard. So there's sort of a balance there. And that's why there's the balance on the scales of justice. It's exactly what they represent.
Okay, thank you very much. I think really, yeah, I learned quite a bit. Thank you.
Yeah. I have one question, probably just quick question. So I see that a lot of the responsibility of the DA is, you know, prosecute criminals. But if he choose not to do that, like a Gascon, what can judge do? For example, if somebody hurt another person or even kill
Nothing.
somebody, but Gascon decided he is you know, people of color or something, and he doesn't want to prosecute him. What can judge do? Nothing, right?
Unfortunately, nothing. Judges can't charge people with crimes. They can only address what has been presented to them. And it's the responsibility of the prosecutor's office to present charges against people to the judges. And then the judge has the ability to do something, but they can't be the ones to charge anybody with a crime. It's just sort of like not their role within the system. The problem is you get judges that want to follow the policies of George Gascon instead of implementing the laws it should be. And that's where the real problem is.